Look at a towering red rock formation in Arizona. Now look at a cynical teenager eating breakfast in a diner. Now look at a frantic, high-stakes tennis match. On the surface, these three things share absolutely zero cultural DNA, but they are all intimately connected by the exact same highly specific presence: two nuns. Historically, this pairing has a deeply practical origin. Within the Catholic tradition, sisters travel in pairs to ensure physical safety and to provide mutual accountability in public. It is a strictly functional rule. Yet painters, authors, and even mapmakers have lifted this functional rule of two out of the convent and weaponized it for storytelling. Tracing the path of this specific pairing reveals how we use the image of the devout to navigate our own anxieties about faith and social division. To understand the nun as a potent symbol, look at early literary appearances, like Chaucer's 14th century Second Nun's Tale. The narrator describes St. Cecilia, a woman demanding absolute bodily autonomy and spiritual purity from her forced marriage. Placed in a violent, corrupt Roman world, Cecilia survives being burned in a bath of flames and endures 3 strikes from an executioner's blade before finally succumbing. She refuses to yield her physical or spiritual boundaries to the state. This medieval context established the archetype, the nun as a divine, untouchable ideal, completely isolated from the corruption of the secular world. For centuries, that untouchable ideal held firm. Then, 20th century artists realized they could generate intense narrative friction by dragging that ideal down into the messy, modern world. Take the 1949 film Come to the Stable. 2 sisters travel from France to a wintry New England town, with an objective that seems impossible for 2 outsiders: securing land to build a hospital with 0 funding. They bypass traditional power structures entirely. Instead of using money or muscle, they rely on a guileless faith that manages to disarm a local gangster and outmaneuver a wealthy landlord. The conflict culminates in a violent, high-stakes tennis match. The sisters wager for the final $500 they need, diving and gancing across the court to secure their hospital. This deliberate collision of the sacred and the mundane also swept the mid-century fine art world, driven by printmakers like Edith Bry and Isabel Bishop. Bishop painted shopgirls and down-and-out men, while Bry captured devout nuns and ordinary laborers. Both artists applied the exact same classical reverence to all of their subjects. By treating a department store clerk or a street laborer with the same formal dignity as a woman of the cloth, these artists collapse the hierarchy between the sacred and the profane. Sometimes that disruption doesn't require divine miracles or high-stakes wagers. In J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, the trope is stripped of its religious power entirely to expose purely psychological barriers. The alienated teenage protagonist, Holden Caulfield, strikes up a conversation with 2 nuns while eating breakfast at a diner. This visualization breaks down the stark economic divide sitting on their table. Holden is eating a heavy meal of bacon and eggs, while the nuns rely on a meager order of toast and coffee, holding on to a small collection basket. Despite that glaring social and financial gap, the 3 of them bond over a shared love for the play Romeo and Juliet. Holden's interaction with the sisters reveals a capacity for empathy that his usual cynicism hides. We can see this dynamic operate on paper and on screen, but it also exists physically, carved into the vast geography of the American Southwest. Rising out of the Coconino National Forest in Arizona are 2 massive sandstone spires, officially known as Christianity Spire and Streaker Spire. Locally, they are known simply as the 2 nuns. Why look at a permanent geological feature and project this specific human pairing onto it? Because the 2 nuns motif acts as a recurring narrative foil. Whether enduring Roman executioners, swinging a racket for real estate, or sharing a diner booth, the pairing represents a self-contained unit of purpose navigating an otherwise chaotic environment. Creators deploy them to test the secular world. They force the characters they meet, and the audience watching, to confront our own compassion, our shifting values, and the artificial boundaries we construct to keep the extraordinary at a safe distance.